morning. How are you doing? Haven't stood up for a long time, but this is basically me standing up. I thought it would be helpful before Ilana comes up if I just gave you a quick overview of the Huffington Post and HuffPost Live and give you a little sense of what it is that we do. Now, I really wasn't sure about my approach. I see that I'm still able to draw half a house, and I'm not really much of a morning person myself. So I thought about it, and my first instinct was, to come on like a wrecking ball, just sort of wreck you. But then I thought, you don't really need to see me twerking. So I think I'll just take a more pedestrian approach, and I apologize for that image, which will stay into your head long into the day. Anyway, the Huffington Post. We launched the Huffington Post in May 2005, so about 8.5 years ago. There was 5 of us. There's now 750 of us working on the Huffington Post. We now average 100 million unique visitors every month, which is pretty amazing. And we're now in 8 countries, soon to be 10. We just launched Germany. We're launching Brazil in December and South Korea in January. So when we launched HuffPost, one of the foundational thoughts was that we are in a new era. The days of the media god sitting up there on Mount Olympus, talking down to us, telling us, and that's the way it is, as Walter Cronkite used to do, that's past. People don't want that anymore. People are tired of being talked at, and they want to be talked with. They want a seat at the table. And that's what we're trying to give them, both on the Huffington Post and on HuffPost Live. So this shift from presentation to participation fuels everything that we do. How does this manifest itself? Well, on the Huffington Post, since we launched, we have had 265 million comments left. It's a pretty amazing number. When you think about it, that's 5 comments every second of every day. So the people really have something to say and want to be part of shaping the stories, right? So then when it was time for us to launch HuffPost Live, we knew we wanted to do a video manifestation of the Huffington Post after AOL acquired the Huffington Post. So I looked into this thing because I wanted to be different, right? What was going to be the difference maker? We didn't want to be like all the cable networks. Not that there's anything wrong with what they're doing, but obviously one of the secrets of success should be to go where they're not. So we looked into it, and I thought that this community, the sense of participation, was a real difference maker for us. And so as I looked into the comments of those 265 million, I saw that 70% of them were left in response to another comment. So people were not just commenting, they were actually having conversations. So once this idea that engagement was going to be our difference maker, that it was going to be our North Star, everything changed. I'll give you a little example of what that looked like. So this was the mock-up that I did when I took it to the board of AOL to try to get money from them. So you see, it's kind of like everything you've normally seen. Got a big screen, right? Because it's video, so you put that up there. And down below, there's a little bit of social engagement. We thought, well, wait a minute. If we're really going to double down on engagement, we've got to make that commitment. We've got to make engagement just as important as consumption. So you know the classic story where you're out and you write it down on the cocktail napkin and that's the thing that you keep. This isn't that sexy, it's a whiteboard. But nonetheless, this was the moment. This was February of 2011, right after we had gotten the okay from the board. And you see, this was the moment where we sort of got the idea that we would take engagement and not make it an afterthought and make it just as important as consumption. So this is what it looks like. This is what the HuffPost Live platform looks like. I don't know if you've seen it, but you see, we shrunk the screen down because let's be honest, it's people talking. We're not making Avatar. It's not unbelievable special effects. So we shrunk that down and we made the comment well here much bigger. And we have this very active community. They've left over 1.5 million comments since we launched 14 months ago. So we made that bigger. Then we realized we didn't want, if we were really going to be bringing the community in, putting them front and center, they couldn't be an afterthought. A lot of networks, they bring people in, and it's kind of, oh, we're talking to the expert, John in Wyoming. Oh, sorry, John, we don't have time for you. Moving on. We didn't think that was the right way to do it. So we thought, but if we were going to have real people being part of the conversation, they needed to be on a level playing field. We didn't want it to be, Mr. Expert, I have a question for you. So we created this thing over here. It's called the resource well. I don't know if they do this in Israel, but in America, when you're in 7th grade, in junior high school, your math teacher always told you to show your work. Well, this is us showing our work. Anything that we do that goes into making that segment, we put in that resource well. If it's a video that we're using, if it's a story, if it's research, anything like that, and you can click on it, and you can read up on it. So when you're joining us live, you see that big button, be an on-air guest, you can click a button. You don't come right on. It's not chat roulette. You don't press a button and suddenly go live, doing whatever you might be doing in your house there. But you can click a button, talk to one of our producers, and explain why you think you would bring some value to the conversation. So you can then read up on it. So when you're part of the conversation, you're not asking a question. You're saying, I read that thing that you wrote, and here's why I disagree with you. So it makes for a very much more interesting dynamic. So once we hit on that, we said, wouldn't it be great if people could be on that same level playing field, not just on the thing that's live, but on the one that's coming up in 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. So you see along the top, that's what we call our green room. It's basically an interactive program guide. And you can click on that if something interests you, like you're really interested in Jay-Z. So you click on that, and you can still hear the program, and you can still see it, that little corner up there, but you're then surrounded by all the information about that upcoming segment. And people start conversations 20 minutes, 40 minutes, like I said, an hour ahead of time. Sometimes we've had segments where there's been 150, 200 comments before it even goes live. And that's when it really gets exciting. So this is really what I consider much more than a video experience, but a platform for engagement. And it's working incredibly well. Since we launched, we have had 10,000 people join us live on the network from 90 different countries. And that's the moment when this really works. Doesn't happen every day, I'll be honest with you, but sometimes we've had a mother from Kenya talking to a mother in Kentucky, sharing shared experiences, and you kind of go, oh my God, that's remarkable. And if you could do that, we say to ourselves, the bar of entry has been lowered by this technology. You'll see in the video I'm about to show you. We use Google Hangouts, we use Skype, so people can join us from all over the place, and it's having incredible results, as I say, 1.5 million comments. We've had 0.1 since we made this graphic. And we've also had, the thing that I'm most pleased with is the level of engagement. When people come to our live platform, they're watching it for over 20 minutes. So the average for online video in the US is about 4.5 minutes. So people are actually spending like the equivalent of a sitcom watching HuffPost Live, which is very satisfying. Ilana and I are going to talk more about what it means to bring real people in, how have we had to change our editorial because of that. But before we have our conversation, I want to show you a quick video. As I said, we use Google a lot, Google Hangout, a great product, and they said that they liked what we were doing so much they wanted to make a video about it. So when Google says they want to make a video about it, you say, yes, of course. So here's the video, and then we can have the conversation.
It launched in 2005, a time when social media was on the rise and a base of
So, Ilana, if you'll join me, we can continue the conversation here at the chairs. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good morning. It was great. I never felt so old, I have to tell you. I mean, I'm 40-something, and I don't remember when I felt so old-fashioned. Now, suppose that I am an old-school, regular TV news editor.
Okay.
Take me to HuffPost Live newsroom. What is the first thing that I should learn? Where should I change?
Well, the first thing I'd have to ask you is how adept are you at social media? Because when we hire people, I ask them, one of the questions I always ask is, how do you use social media in your work? And if their answer is, well, you know, I write a story and then I tweet it, they go into the no pile. But if they say, well, I use social media as a reportorial tool, I use it to find new sources, different voices, fresh outlooks on it, then they got a second interview. So first of all, you have to be, you don't have to be a digital native, but you have to be adept at using it as a reportorial tool. But the thing I would say to you is, don't worry, you would fit right in, because what we're really doing is not that different than what you do. We're just using different tools. Let me give you an example. I was interviewed by a reporter here before I made the trip over last week, and he said, he kind of got a little, well, I'm a real journalist, and I don't know when you have these people and they come on, and that doesn't seem like it's real journalism. I said, well, let me ask you a couple questions. Are you a journalist? Yeah. Do you have sources? Yeah. Do you talk to them on the phone? Yeah. Do you write down what they say? Yeah. Do you then publish what they said? Yeah. Okay, we're doing the same thing. We're just cutting out the middleman,
Are we doing the same thing,
Yeah.
Roy? And here's where the challenge, I think, lies. I know we are all about saying here in this conference, it's the same story, just a different platform.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. The same story. We are all about telling stories. It's just a different platform, or a different technology,
Yeah.
or a different interaction
Tools,
with
yeah.
it. Is it truly the same story, or are there stories that will not survive the transfer?
Actually, I would go the other way and tell you that it's better, because it's telling you more stories. Traditionally, what we've done is we've redefined what an expert is. Okay? Traditionally, if you watch cable television, at least in the US, I'm not as familiar here, but I assume, I'd say 95% of the people are white, middle-aged men, right? And the definition of expert is, well, were they a politician, or were they a lobbyist, or were they from the halls of academia? Pretty narrow. And I think that that's, kind of BS. That there's a lot of people out there who have very interesting things to say, whose voices are not being heard, whose point of view is not being heard, who don't have a seat at the table.
Before I challenge that,
Yeah,
give me an
please.
example of where you realized they are there, out there, these new experts, the redefinition of expert, all of a sudden came to life.
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Yeah, let me tell you what the definition of an expert is, and then I'll give you an example. For us, we don't want just people with opinions. We don't want bloviators, as we say in America. If they say, I want to come on and talk about Obamacare, I don't like it. Why? I don't. Why? Don't like it. Why? Just don't. That doesn't add anything to the conversation. But if the woman says, I'm a single mother, and I have a child who had a pre-existing condition, and I couldn't get coverage before, but now thanks to this, I can, and here's how it's changed my life, she's an expert on that topic.
And it doesn't matter that she doesn't have a clue as to the financial problems, the fiscal intricacies, the political bias,
She's not the only person we're having on, Ilana. We could have that person, we could have the data person, we could have the person from the ivory-covered walls, but here's the person who the policy is affecting. We don't do that enough.
And I'm asking you here, I grant you that you would gain something from the new experts.
Yeah.
Don't we lose the old ones?
No, that's the point. I'm not saying we're only going to have the community. I'm saying we're adding more people at the table. I'm not excluding you, and I'm not excluding your expert. I want them. But here's the thing. We live in an era, we all would agree with this. This is a stupid statement, but it's the greatest era for collecting data ever, right? I mean, you and I could say, we could tell us any statistic you want. What's the average rainfall in Mozambique? We'd find it in 5 seconds. So we have data coming out of our ears. But what we're lacking is narrative. We're lacking in storytelling. And for me, this is what we're doing. We're putting flesh and blood on the data. And to me, that is the thing. Data touches your head, narrative and storytelling touches your heart, and I think we want to touch people's hearts. Doesn't mean we want to exclude their minds, but if I came to you, I'll give you one example. If I said to you that unemployment in the US is 7.2%, my brain goes, oh, that's bad. I know that's bad. Historically, it's much lower than that, but I'm not affected. I'm not emotionally affected. If you said to me, well, that means that 20 million people are unemployed or underemployed, I still would say, I know that's a big number, 20, that's bad, but I'm still not in it. But if I say to you, let me introduce you to John. John's been out of work for 99 weeks, okay? Because of that, he lost his house. His daughter had to leave the school that she loved, and his wife is working 3 shifts at the factory. I'm in. I want to know more. Tell me about John. Now, if you wrote about John, that would be powerful. But if I showed you John, and John told you his story in his own words, and I had 3 other Johns, and they were sharing their conversations from all over the world, different walks of life, different things, you would be, I think, touched, moved, and engaged in a way that you wouldn't otherwise.
I guess we agree it's better to bring more people to the table. I guess we agree it's better not to have just the white males as the pundits and the experts. I guess we agree it's good to have people's engagement. My question to you is whether you entertain the price. And for me as a reporter, and again, perhaps I sound old-fashioned, here's the basic question. Do we give them what they want, or do we tell them what they need to know?
Listen, you're absolutely right. There is the danger of putting people in a bubble. We have that, we're getting there in America. There's no question that it's a danger. If you're a conservative, you watch Fox. If you're a progressive, you watch MSNBC. If you don't really have an opinion, you watch CNN. So you know, there is that danger of being preached to the
if you want to see yourself, you go on YouTube. But people need to see themselves on the air, or do they need to see something they didn't know about the world they live in?
Listen, we want to do, so you keep, if I may, you're still thinking in an either-or world. You're framing everything as if it's this or that. You know, I can either watch channel 2 or I can watch channel, I don't know what the hell the other channel is, but you know.
Neither do we.
Yeah. See what she did? She slipped it right in there. But it's not like, you know, I watch Leno or a Letterman. We saw this yesterday with Yuval, right? He showed us that we want to watch when we want, how we want, where we want. We move it around, we shift it around. So it's not either or. So I must say, you have to stop thinking that it's either this or that, and it could be both.
I'll do that when you convince me, and that will be the last of this kind of questions.
Yes.
I'll do that when you convince me that the kind of work that I or my colleagues are doing, I'll give you an example.
Please.
I'm working nowadays in the editing room, around the clock, on a story on which I was working for, say, 2 years of research, something like 100 hours on tape. I guess it's going to be 15 minutes, Avi doesn't know yet, 15 minutes on the air. And it's going to take us like, I don't know, 200 hours of editing. Can that be done in the kind of television you do?
Well, listen, again, you know, we have 500 channels, at least in America. I'm not saying that, the only thing, we should be one thing. We should be like Prada in the old days, right? Pravda in the old days. It's only going to be one channel. No, obviously, I would love to see your show. I love, you know, great investigative journalism.
Can this kind of investigative journalism survive the transfer to the new platforms?
Okay.
And that's a strictly personally
the question that the question that you have to ask isn't, is there room for you because of the tools and the techniques and the platform that I'm using?
Exactly.
What you have to ask is, Avi, is how much money is there for what we consider this kind of, you know, investigative enterprise journalism?
But it's not only that, right? Because it's something that you truly believe in. You believe in viewers' engagement.
Yes,
you
I do.
believe in creating a community.
Yeah.
And it's cool, and it's fun, and it's interactive, and it's a brave new world.
No, keep going. There's more than that. It's better than cool and fun and different and sexy. It's deep, it's satisfying, and it's important. You can't just go on the surface and say, this has, you know, this is glossy and it's sexy. No. It brings to the table, I think, something of meaning, something importance, and something of great value.
And it departs you of something that is at the heart of the ethos of a journalist, which is I go out there, I collect the data, I make sense of it, and I create the narrative, not you.
Again, I'm not saying this is the only way. For instance, the Huffington Post, when we were acquired, one of the things we wanted to do was to have more enterprise journalism. So we have a reporter named David Wood, okay? David Wood wanted to take the time to do an in-depth story reporting on the effect on families in America on the people coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. We gave him 9 months. He traveled all over all the stuff that you're talking about he did, right? And we went in there, and we shot video, and we did 10-part series called Beyond the Battlefield. It won a Pulitzer Prize, which is the highest prize you can get in America for journalism, right? So we are behind that. We're not, it's not either or. And by the way, I'm with you. I'm the one who has to argue with the bean counters, not saying you, we have to talk to the bean counters who want to know, well, wait a minute, how many clicks did Beyond the Battlefield get? How many video views? How many pre-rolls, right? But the punchline is...
Did it get enough?
Well, here's my definition of enough. How much is it worth when I walk into a meeting with an advertiser and I say, hi, I'm Roy Sekoff, I'm the editor of the Pulitzer Prize-winning Huffington Post? Is that $5 million? Is that $10 million? Is that $500 million in value over the course of the meetings that I take? So, you have to do that math. I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not pretending that there's not, a finite amount of money, and we have to decide what to do. But I think the Huffington Post, to get what you said about the question of what do we want or what we need, if it was just what we need, our entire website would be, sexy, titillating.
If it was just what we want.
What?
If it was just what we want.
That's what people want,
yeah,
right? But we don't do that. We've made an editorial commitment. By the way, we don't create our website using algorithms, right? We have engineers who say that. Why do we have editors? It should just move up, and when people like it, it goes to the top. No, hell no. We have editors, and we decide what's important.
Okay.
When we launched the Huffington Post in 2005, we made a commitment that we were going to cover Afghanistan until it was done. Unfortunately, it's not done. But, 8.5 years later. But we put that on the top of the Huffington Post. We call that our splash. It doesn't click as well as some other stories, but we put it there because we've decided it's important.
Now we stop arguing, and I start.
Is that arguing? I thought it was just passionate interlocking.
I was afraid that perhaps I'm becoming too, aggressive, and I always,
We're Jews. Come on, we can argue.
Yeah, no, I always caution myself.
Right? I mean, this is not arguing. My wife, who's not Jewish, when she first met me and my family and she saw us talking like this around the dinner table, she said, oh my God, these people hate each other. And then she realized, no, this is dinner,
And he was asking me yesterday, why does Shira look worried? We always look worried. Somebody's always after us.
I understand.
Roy, these announcements in the airports where they tell you that they ask for your undivided attention, as if there is something like that? There
Yes.
is no, it's like Waze asking me if I'm the driver and expecting me to be honest about it. Hell, I'm the driver.
Yeah.
Do you work knowing deep down that the viewer's attention, the audience's attention is always divided? You take it for granted?
I think, we talk about old generation. I think there's a difference, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I think there's a difference in the way younger people are assimilating information. And I'm not sure. I am worried about the depth of it. But listen, we're having people watch for 22 minutes. That's makes me feel very hopeful. But I came home the other day, and I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she had her computer open, and she was looking at her smartphone, and the TV was on, and she was writing. And I said, honey, you're supposed to be doing your homework. And she said, yeah, I am. And I said, no, you're Instagramming, and you're video chatting, and the TV's on. And she said, and your point is? I'm doing my homework, Dad. And I went, all right, what do I know, So I don't know. I mean, I do think there is room for mindfulness. I do think there is room for focus. I do think there is greater room to worry about the constant use of technology as a diversion. But I think, there's all kinds of things that divert us. I don't know, what's the statistic? The average man thinks of sex every 6 seconds or something. So I think we have divided attention no matter what. So maybe this tool is just making it easier to get good porn. I don't know. I'm not just saying that's the fact.
My daughter is a bit older, but it was like 4 years ago that I came home, and I asked her, have you seen Yair lately? He's a friend of hers, and he's the son of our director. And she said, no, I haven't. My webcam is broken. So
Yeah.
there you have it.
Yeah.
You know, you and I talked the other day about the dialogue published on the New York Times between Bill Keller, the former editor of the Times, and Glenn Greenwald, who
Yeah.
was one of the reporters that worked on the NSA story, the eavesdropping story for The Guardian. And Keller advocates objective, impartial kind of journalism, and Greenwald calls for activist journalism, agenda-driven reporters who speak their minds and write their minds.
Yeah.
Do you have this conversation within the the HuffPost Live? Do you have this dialogue?
Every day? Yeah, I mean, but I am a believer, I'm on the Greenwall side of the fence. I believe that this faux objectivity is, I don't know if you use this term in Israel, bullshit, because I think that we all have opinions. And this view from nowhere, I'm just going to be a reporter, and I don't have an opinion, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the one hand and on the other hand, and I don't have an opinion, you decide. I don't know. I think there are facts, and I think that there are things that are, things that are there. I don't believe the fact that there's two sides to every story and the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think that's a dangerous way of thinking.
That does not mean that opinion is to be delivered to the viewer. And here I give you one quote of Keller's,
Yeah.
which I'd like you to refer to,
Yeah.
and it goes to agenda-driven journalism, which I bet has more room in your kind of platform anyway, by
Okay.
definition. And here's what he says. Bill Keller, really an excellent journalist, has been the editor of the New York Times for years, and that's what he says. I believe that impartiality is worthwhile aspiration in journalism, even if it is not perfectly achieved. I believe that in most cases it gets you closer to the truth because it imposes a discipline of testing all assumptions, very much including your own. I believe journalism that starts from a publicly declared predisposition is less likely to get to the truth and less likely to be convincing to those who are not already convinced. Exhibit A, Fox News. And yes, writers are more likely to manipulate the evidence to support a declared point of view than one that is privately held, because pride is on the line.
The one word I would take objection to, I would not support the idea of agenda journalism. I'm more in favor of being honest that we have opinions and are transparent and identify it as such. I mean, there is objective reality, there is facts, and I think there's room for saying, so I don't believe in that we necessarily have an agenda. I believe that we have a point of view, and I think that's what people want. If one of the reasons people come to HuffPost is because we're not afraid to have a take. We're not afraid to have voice and attitude and have a little fun, for God's sakes. What we always say is we take what we do very seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously.
You know, now that you mentioned fun, we have less than 2 minutes and we didn't have fun yet. I have to ask you, how is it to work with Ariana?
Why do you assume that that's the fun part of the conversation? I'm kidding, Ariana. I didn't.
It's
that was a
already
joke.
starting to be.
I can't help doing it. It's fabulous. I've been with Ariana for 14 and a half years.
How did you meet her?
That is a longer story than 1 minute and 23 seconds.
It's Israel. It's Israel. It's
But
Middle
I was
Eastern time.
basically I was a screenwriter in Hollywood, and my career was very, very boring. And I wouldn't say that it was unsuccessful, but I wouldn't say it was successful. And so, at a certain point, things sort of got a little slow. And my wife was 8 months pregnant with our second child. I was looking at other possibilities. I had worked with Michael Moore for a year. And so some of my friends were working with Bill Maher. Long story short, I met Bill. He knew Ariana very well. She was looking for somebody to help with the project. I went to talk to her about it because I had a very different perception of her at the time. She had not undergone her political metamorphosis yet. And so I went and met her, and we sat down, and she's Greek, so she fed me, and then she fed me some more, and then we talked. We didn't talk about the project. And after, we talked about her kids, my kids, and all this. So after 2 hours, she said, I think this will work. And I said, I don't know what this is. And then so she said, what do you think? And so she gave me an 8-week job, which has lasted 14 and a half years. So, yeah.
3 quick questions
Great.
at the end of our conversation. What is more important to you? Because I have a colleague here, a well-known journalist, who says that nowadays, working in the media with so many outlets, so many websites, so many channels, it's like spitting into the oceans. Well, he was using another term, but spitting into the ocean. What is more important to you? To stand out, to be relevant, or to be interesting?
Can I be both? Again with the either or. Ilana, stop with the either or.
You know, it's better to be rich and healthy than to be poor and sick, but
Better to look good than to feel good, I agree. No, I mean, obviously, I would like to be both. I think that, you know, I'd like to be interesting, but I'd like to be interesting because I'm relevant.
Can you make a story that people will talk about it tomorrow?
Yes. Absolutely, we've done that. We've made news repeatedly on HuffPost Live. It's one of the things that we're most proud of. I'll give you one quick example. We had a judge who had voted in favor of these very negative voting laws.
In Texas.
In Texas, which made it so, and he came on HuffPost Live and said that he had made a mistake. It blew it up, right? We had a tremendous amount of news. It was written about everywhere, so I hope it was interesting and it was relevant.
The kind of question I have to ask you, was there a moment when you knew it's working?
Yes. Okay, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. There's two moments, if I can, real quick. One was you saw a bit of it. Tom Friedman was on, and he was talking about the treatment of women in Saudi Arabia. And a woman in Saudi Arabia was watching online, and she left a quick video comment, which we turned around in 1 minute and we showed, and Friedman went, wait a minute, she's answering what I just said. And we said, yeah. He said, but she's in Saudi Arabia. We said, yeah. You know, that's the moment when the world really is flat. And then the other quick moment, and I'll end with this, is before we went live, 1 week before we went live, we were doing rehearsals. And they were doing a segment, and I came into the control room, and I saw all the screens of all the different people they had waiting in the Google Hangout. And this one woman didn't look like anybody I'd ever seen before. She didn't have her full complement of teeth. She was wearing a house coat. She was chain smoking, and she was leaning down, and every moment or two she was sipping what it looked to be an adult beverage. She was swaying a little bit, and I thought, oh my God, what did I do here? What did I do? But I knew that my producers were serious. You know, I have 100 people working. I knew that they had vetted her, but I thought, oh my God, who is this woman? Her name turned out to be Rogi, and she lives in a double-wide trailer in rural New Mexico, right? And the question we were talking about was, were white, privileged, suburban gay men hijacking the gay rights movement? Because anytime you see talking about gay rights in America, it's always the two very handsome, nice guys wearing sweaters with the little kid that they adopted, you know? There's a whole abundance of the LGBT community that's not necessarily, you know, those two guys, Mark and Dave from Connecticut. So Rogi was on. It turns out that she's a middle-aged lesbian living in a trailer in rural New Mexico in a very religious town where she's an atheist and a lesbian. And she's finally started talking about 3 minutes in, and she delivered the most eloquent, articulate, heartfelt, passionate thing that I had never seen anybody like this before on my TV. I'd never heard anything like this before. And I said, God damn it, if we can do that, at least now and then, we're going to be all right.
Why doesn't it ever happen to me? Last word,
Okay.
Roy, and that's from Eric Barnow.
It's what?
Eric Barnow,
Yeah.
a television and radio historian. He wrote it like 40 years ago.
Okay.
I read it to you and take it from there.
Okay.
And that's what he said about television. The luminous screen in the home carries fantastic authority. Viewers everywhere tend to accept it as a window on the world and to watch it for hours each day. Viewers feel that they understand from television alone what is going on in the world. They unconsciously look to it for guidance as to what is important, good, and desirable, and what is not. It has tended to displace or overwhelm other influences, such as newspapers, school, church, grandpa, grandma. It has become the definer and transmitter of a society's values. What do we tell Eric? Forget about it?
Eric, you know, welcome to 2013. There are many other platforms that people are getting their information from. They're talking to grandma on FaceTime. You know, they're connecting to friends when the camera's working. And what I really, really think that we are in an era that is I'll always say more is better. More voices, more opinions, it's better. So instead of one person saying, this is what happened, today it's each of us telling each of us, this is what's happening right now, and right now, and right now. And I think in aggregate, that adds up to a story worth telling and an experience that I think can enrich us, not make us sort of the narrow supplicant watching the idiot box flicker over us for 8 hours a day.
And that's the way it is.
And that's the way it is.
For now.
For now.
Roy, thank you so much.
Thank you, though. Thank you. Great.